Hello everybody, my name is Adari and welcome back to day 6 of learning HTML. So this is part 1 of 2 total and we're going to be talking about HTML tables. We've divided this class into 2 parts because we feel HTML tables is somewhat of a difficult topic and we want to make sure we get the best understanding of it. So first off, what is an HTML table? An HTML table is actually just a regular table written in HTML. If you're not aware, a table is a type of data arrangement. Other examples of data arrangements could be pie charts or bar graphs. Tables are widely used in communication, research, and data analysis, and there are many different ways to display data. Once again, pie charts and bar graphs are just one of the few examples, and tables are also just one of the more popular and straightforward ways. So I used the word data analysis. So if you're not aware of what data analysis is, it does seem like a kind of complicated word structure, I guess you could say. So the data basically means information, and the analysis is basically investigation or investigating. The purpose of data analysis is to look at what data is trying to tell us. So what are HTML tables used for? Well, once again, since they are written in HTML, they are used specifically for displaying tables in web browsers. Using an HTML table makes sense when you want to organize data that would look best in a spreadsheet. If you're not aware, a spreadsheet is just an electronic document where data is arranged. Google Spreadsheets and Microsoft Excel are one of the more popular spreadsheet platforms. There are some things that should not be arranged in a tabular format, just meaning table, because it wouldn't make any sense. So here's an example of an HTML table. We see that we have our box. I have a picture aside just to make it clear that this has nothing to do or is nowhere near similar to a real world table where you'd put maybe food or your computer. Something really important to note is that tables and HTML tables are organized into rows and columns. So if you're not familiar with rows and columns, they're very simple concepts. Columns run vertically across the table and rows run horizontally. You may have actually heard these terms from other things. A good examples of these where you can find them is at the movie theater or maybe some indoor church or another event where you have to sit down. So yeah, rows and columns are usually used for organizing seats. So here's another example of a table. This one has more to analyze than the previous example, or yeah, if you can even call that example. So this one has more to analyze. From the title, we can see that this is study time versus grades. So we can already tell that this is comparing the study time with the result of grades. The student name really isn't important in this matter, unless if you're trying to compare something else. But in this case, it's study time versus grades. So if we were to analyze this data, we would look and we would see, or we could argue that with the more study time, the higher your grade is going to be. We can argue this because people like Sydney over here, if we go to Sydney, she studied for a total of 5 hours, which was tied for the most amount of hours studied. And she also got one of the highest grades. If we look at Thomas, he also studied for 4 hours and he got the highest grade of 94. And if we look again for the person who got 4 hours, they still managed to get really high grades, being 88 and 93. But if we really want to complete our argument, we could also say that Marissa, the person who studied for the least amount of time, only 1 hour, got the lowest grade of 78. So right now we've actually just analyzed this table and we've gotten a message out of it. We can argue that with the more study time, the better grades you get. So here's a bad table example. The problems with this table is that it's very difficult to understand and it does not convey a good conclusion to the viewer fast enough. So it's really hard to analyze this data. If you noticed in the last table, we had subtitles and titles, so we immediately knew what we were looking at. We knew that Bob was a student name. We knew what the numbers represent. We knew that was a grade. And we knew what the other number represent, how it was the hour. So for this table example, it's very bad. You can't even really qualify this as a table because it doesn't have cells, rows, nor columns. And yeah, it's very complicated. It's very complicated to view. So here's this table fixed. Of course, the table itself or the data itself wasn't really complex, so there's not too much to analyze, unless we were to say that all these smiley faces, moons, suns, and hearts have the same amount, being 4. But yeah, at least now we have subtitles, and it's very clear and organized, and we can immediately know what we're looking at. So there are many unique styles of tables. The multiplication table is just one of the really more unique ones. The thing about the multiplication table is that it doesn't operate as your usual table. In a sense, you're not really analyzing any data when you look at it. You're more of actually using it as a tool to help you. If you're not aware, multiplication tools are used to help you learn the multiplication tables, usually up to 12, just like in this case as well. So with this table, there's really nothing to explain. It's just really unique, and it can be used to find anything on the multiplication tables up to the 12 times. So we can actually use it right here. I've set up an example with the red lines. So we have 2, and then if we point to the other 2, we can see 2 times 2. So that equals 4, of course. But then if we want to do more complex things like 9 times 12, which you might not think of on the top of your head, you can use this table. We go to the 12 at the bottom, and then we match it up with the 12 on the row, and then we see that the answer is 108. So here's an example of a real-world table. This is something we see more commonly, probably a lot more often than a multiplication table, unless if you're in school. We can see this table has its month, the month of May. It has the year, 2020 in this case. And then under we have the subtitles, and we can pretty much see all the days of the week, Sunday, Monday, or Sunday to Saturday, Sunday to Monday, and yeah. So that's really all for this class, guys. Once again, this class is divided into 2 parts. This class we just want to gain an understanding of what tables are and how they work, and how we analyze data so we can actually use them. Thank you, and I hope you guys had a fun time, and I'll see you next class.